Hey everybody, welcome to the Stuff I Heard podcast. I'm your host, Josh Peak. Let's turn the microphone on, shall we? Hey everybody, thanks for listening to this is the Stuff I Heard podcast. This is episode 133, and today is August 21st of 2019. Today happens to be my sister's birthday. Happy birthday, Brandy. Love you. Looking forward to having lunch with you today. Listen, a long time ago, this little boy was born, and he had a mama and a daddy, and they divorced, and then she was single for a long time. And then she met this dude named Dave, and they started dating. And Dave had this daughter. She was a little baby, and her name was Brandy. And there's 6 years difference between us, and we've been together since. And Dave and my mom eventually got married, and they had my brother, Alex, 6 years later. So I'm 6 years older than my sister, and she's 6 years older than my brother, our brother. And when they divorced, I was in the Marine Corps, and, she was all upset. She was like, what does this mean? And I was like, nothing. She's like, no, but what does this mean about us? And I said, nothing. You're my sister. You've always been my sister. You'll always be my sister. It's family. We all make a choice in our lives of the people we let into our lives, correct? Now, obviously when they got together, it was not my choice. They didn't come to me and go, hey, listen, by the way, here's this kid that, could be family, and what do you think? Are you in or you out? That part wasn't a choice. What was a choice was my involvement. And I made a choice a long time ago that she was family. And part of that was because I was raised by people who, believe that you take care of your own, you take care of the family, you look out for them, and you help nurture them, and you encourage them, and so on and so forth. And listen, my sister and I have been together since before she can remember. And I'm 45, which means today she's 39. It's her last year in the 30s. Believe me, I'm going to razz her about that today. Because next year, with the big 4-0. I remember when I turned 40, she was like, you're old now. I was like, yeah, you're coming. Yours is going to be next. So anyway, I'm looking forward to seeing her, and I'm looking forward to hanging out and whatnot, and getting to celebrate her birthday a little bit. I know it's not the same as when we were kids. Now she's a mom, and she's got twin boys, and responsibilities, work and whatnot, and family, and we don't get to hang out like we used to, but that's fine. You're supposed to grow up and grow old and have your own life and your own your own problems, your own whatever. And she's doing that, so great. Happy birthday. I love you. My buddies Greg and Josh West are at a music festival, I guess you'd say, or went to a music festival over the weekend, and they're posting pictures online of seeing Bush and Our Lady Peace and a few other the bands that we used to listen to back in the, when was that, the mid-90s? And it appears they're having a great time, and that's awesome. Hope you guys have fun. Maybe in the future we could do a big venue together. I don't know. It's all about time and money, and if you have time and money, that's sort of the trick. So anyway, what's going on? This is the Stuff I Heard podcast. So let's talk about stuff I heard. Shall we? Let me open up my phone. It's got to see my face over my microphone here. Go into podcasts. Welcome back. Thank you. You're so kind. Alright, so in the Bert Kreischer's podcast, there is a audio version of his YouTube show, Something's Burning. It's on the, if you type in Something's Burning on YouTube, it comes up with this video. It's through the All Things Comedy Network, which is owned by a bunch of comedians, Bill Burr, Al Madrigal, Bert Kreischer, Ari Shaffir, a bunch of guys kind of went in together as a partnership and created a network. And Bill actually had this studio set up, and in it was a kitchen, and him and Tom Segura were walking through, and they were like, what are you going to do with this kitchen? And Tom and Bert had been talking about doing this show called Something's Burning, where Bert basically interviews comedians and tries to cook something, and in the meanwhile, he's not really paying attention, and things go wrong, and sometimes he catches things on fire or cuts himself or something. It's called Something's Burning. Listen, that doesn't happen a lot. Every once in a while, though, he will singe his hand on something and, oh my God, kind of thing. But it's a funny show. Well, episode 1 was with Bill Burr and with Tom Segura. And what they've decided to do is Bert is releasing the uncut audio version. And so far, he's releasing it on Fridays. So like episode 1 came out August 2nd. And then it's been a while because he's on tour, he's busy and whatnot. But then episode 2 came out this past Friday. It's with the Sklar brothers. They are hilarious comedians. It's a fun hang. I enjoyed listening to it. I really did. It's only about 57 minutes long, but it's a lot of funny stuff from these two genius comedian brothers who just happen to be twins. If you watch the video, you're going to see these guys and you're going to go, oh yeah, I've seen them in all kinds of stuff together. They do a lot of stuff together. But it's a very fun hang listening to them talk, and they're cooking in the process, but you don't get much of that in the audio. You get more of listening to their interesting, coming up together stories and past, and how they're learning to navigate comedy together, and their observations along the way. So it's good stuff. Anyway. Also, there's a new Two Bears, One Cave, Bert Kreischer and Tom Segura. Episode 4 came out on Monday. I haven't listened to the audio on any of these. Instead, I'm watching them on YouTube because, here's why. I know you guys are like, well, yeah, this is stuff I heard. Listen, I watched this because they're funny together, but their reactions to each other are hilarious. I mean, Tom has some facial expressions that totally catches Bert into a comedy, into like a laughter spiral, and he can't pull out of it. I mean, in the first 4 minutes of this, he laughs so hard that he almost passes out. And it's a fun hang. The two of them, they're best friends. I know a lot of people hear them on social media talk about, Bert is fat, Tom is fat, and they have this whole campaign thing, and it got out of hand a little bit with them trying to, I guess, push each other to lose weight. And it turned into the Sober October thing, which you've heard on Joe Rogan's podcast with Ari Shaffir, where every October they do some kind of physical challenge, and then they lay off the booze and drugs for the month and get healthier. And it's made for some fun hangs to listen to, and it's fun to watch. I really encourage people to watch the YouTube versions of it, because it's funny to watch them interact with each other. I mean, these guys they're top of the line comedians, and they're best friends, and they're silly together, and they play off each other's egos, and they challenge each other, and it's hilarious. So, but yeah, episode 4, it's really good. If you don't have the ability to watch them, you want to listen to them, absolutely listen to them. You're going to enjoy it. It's good stuff. What else? Another Second Chance Church with Perry Noble. I actually watched this live on Sunday. 5 things we want everyone at Second Chance to know. It's good stuff. Highly recommend. They did their first 6 p.m. service this past week, and they had 15 people get saved. That's awesome, Perry. Keep it going, buddy. Okay, so the one podcast that's really impressed me this past week was Michael Rosenbaum, Inside of You. I listened to some really interesting interviews with him this past week. I started off with, the first name that caught my eye was Richard Marx, which was on August the 13th. A lot of people don't know who Richard Marx is. I mentioned to my wife, she's like, who is that? And I was like, he's had like a billion hits. I don't even know all the songs he sings. He got his start at like 18 years old working with Lionel Richie, and he became a monster music guy. I mean, putting out hits right and left. Just Google Richard Marx. You're going to see all the songs that you grew up with when you were younger. I mean, unless you're like younger than 20. But he's made a lot of music. Right now he still writes music. He still performs. He still does a great job. He's still got a great voice. But I saw that and I thought, now what in the world is Michael Rosenbaum going to talk to Richard Marx about? It turns out they're friends. They hang out together, and he brings his guitar and he plays a little bit. I don't know if he brings his guitar or uses Michael. Anyway, he plays the guitar and he sings a couple songs. He's still got it, man. He's still good. I didn't care for him when he was popular. Like, I'd hear his music and I'd go, oh, Richard Marx. Of course, you make the joke about Richard. Another name for Richard is Dick. Dick Marx. But he had the pretty feathered hair that everybody had in the 80s. And if you saw him on TV and you were another dude and you saw him, girls were like, oh my God, it's Richard Marx. You're like, I hate that guy. Listen, now that I'm a grown up, I gotta admit, the guy is really talented. He's got one heck of a voice. But then, after I listened to that, I thought, well, let's go back a little bit. Let's listen to something that I missed because I've been scrolling. And, I'd forgotten. Listen, honestly, I had forgotten how good Michael Rosenbaum is as an interviewer. And I noticed a name that stuck out. On July 30th, episode 68, he did a podcast with Dolph Lundgren. Dolph Lundgren is 61 years old. I had no idea. He's also like a genius. He is an engineer. Really, really smart guy. He's done a lot of movies over the years. He talks a lot about having a rough childhood and about, meeting Stallone and doing Rocky IV. He does some impersonations of Stallone, which is pretty funny. They've become friends since. They've worked on a couple projects, not with Stallone as his boss, but as like another actor, and they've gotten to hang out, and they're friendly. He talks about dating Grace Jones. A lot of you probably don't remember who Grace Jones was. She was a Bond girl for a while. She was also a really stunning, tall black model who had the spiked haircut and was super muscular. I mean, this was during a time where a lot of black women really didn't have a presence in modeling, and she was like one of the first that stuck out as, oh my God, this is like another type of human. Look how tall and muscular and strong she is. And she was fierce. She had a good personality, and she would do, talk shows and TV and movies, and she was impressive. Well, anyway, her and Dolph dated for quite a while, and he talks about coming up in the movie business during the '80s and hanging out with Michael Jackson and Andy Warhol and stuff like that, and Studio 54, and he's like, it was a different time, but it was before AIDS had come out, and it was crazy. He talks about being a dad now and having kids and trying to raise his kids, and the struggles that there are, and he talks about going through a divorce with his wife, and how he's remarried now, and and he's kind of coming to terms with the fact that he made a lot of mistakes, and listen, this is a good interview. This is an hour long. It's a good interview. If you're ever, kind of curious about what the bad guy from Rocky had to say, click on this. You're going to be really surprised. It's really good. The one after that was with Sean Austin. A lot of you may remember Sean Austin as Rudy. He was also in Goonies as a kid. He's been in Lord of the Rings. He was Sam, the real hero of Lord of the Rings. He was the only one that could actually take the ring. Anyway, He's a good actor. He's been in Stranger Things lately. You guys might remember him. He got eaten season 2. Spoiler if you haven't seen season 2. Good interview, hour and 21 minutes. His father was Gomez from the Addams Family. His mom was Patty Duke. He talked a lot about his mom with dealing with bipolarism and the struggles that presented as a kid, and how much she meant to him and how much she did for awareness for people with mental disabilities. It's a very interesting podcast, really good. That was episode 69, came out on August the 6th. And then I noticed a name that I thought, I don't know who this is, and I clicked on the information. I still don't know how to pronounce his name. It's episode 67. Steve Lukather? Lukather. And he says that a lot of people just call him Luke, even though his last name, Lukather. He is a guitarist, and Michael says that he can play almost any instrument, and he's watched him play almost every instrument. He is in the band Toto, which is making a resurgence lately with the popularity of the song Africa. I catch the waves down in Africa. You know, I think Weezer redid it recently, and it got super popular. Anyway, he's a 5-time Grammy winner. He says that he thinks it's more like 9. He came up with a book called The Gospel According to Luke. And he talks about working with a lot of the industry heavies. He talks about working with Michael Jackson and with Paul McCartney, Van Halen, Quincy Jones. He goes on and on and on about doing things with Cheap Trick and Pink Floyd and a lot of bands along the way where he just had a knack for making music. And he said that was back before anybody really paid them to be songwriters. And he said, you know, by today's standards, I would have been a songwriter on each one of these, and I would be getting residuals from all of them. He said that back then it was called a collaboration. You just came in, you played a few licks, and they're like, all right, you're good. He talks about doing a lot for Lionel Richie and for Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page, and he just got in at the right time with the right people. He had a Steely Dan cover band as a kid. He talks about playing music with a ton of people that everyone would recognize nowadays. And listen, fascinating guy, really fascinating. It came out on July 23rd. It's an hour and 15 minutes long. It's so good. Every time I think that I'm caught up on things, I look around at, all right, who haven't I listened to lately? And Michael Rosenbaum's Inside of You is one of those where I go, you know, I need to listen to this more. I need to listen to him more. He's so good. Let's talk about Joe Rogan, shall we? Because I don't know if I can have a podcast without talking about Joe Rogan. Okay, so I talked last week about listening to Jim Gaffigan and watching his special on Amazon Prime. And I went back and watched the rest of it because I had fallen asleep because I'd been up since 3 a.m. I went back and watched the rest of it. It was good. He did a good job. I went to find the Alonzo Bolden one, though, and it shows like something upcoming, but it says like season 1, and there's no thing to watch. And I thought, okay, did I misunderstand? Is this a show that he's going to have, and maybe they just haven't released anything yet? So I'm still waiting for that. I've actually got it on my search thing, so I could click on it and look at it from time to time, see if something's come up. But today I listened to episode 1336, which came out Monday. Legion of Skanks. These guys, Big J. Okerson, Louis Gomez, and Dave Smith, they have a podcast that's been labeled as the most offensive podcast on earth. And they're all stand-up comedians. They're from New York. They do their podcast from New York. They're hilarious together. They're very offensive. If you offend easily, don't listen to them. But this was a fun hang for like half of it, and then the other half of it, they went deep diving into mixed martial arts stuff, which I know nothing about. When I say nothing, I mean like I know some of the tertiary names. If they mention, you know, certain fighters, I go, I've heard that name. That's it. That's my limit of it. Like, I don't have access to watch it. I don't watch it. I have watched it from time to time. I've probably seen maybe 50 fights over the years. I'm not what you call a fan. I mean, I'll watch it if it's on. Listen, when Ronda Rousey was running up the deal here, I was really wanting to watch more and more of her. Conor McGregor, same way. He was compelling. I wanted to watch it really bad then. But, people win, people lose. There's a lot of fights, a lot of good fights. I hear about it all the time. It's you only have so much time and energy to devote to things. And I don't have any for that. I'm glad they're doing it. I'm glad they have something shared in common. And that's great, but I can't. But I listen to it. It's fun to listen to. There's a lot of, you can tell they're passionate about it and they understand a lot of what's going on, and that's great. Okay, so I listened to that this morning. Now I'm listening to episode 1337, which just came out Tuesday, with Dan Crenshaw. Dan Crenshaw is a politician and former U.S. Navy SEAL officer serving as the U.S. representative for Texas' 2nd Congressional District since 2019. Apparently he was just elected. He was the guy, I don't know if you guys remember, who was called out on by Pete Davidson on Saturday Night Live. He lost an eye in combat. And he's got an eye patch on. Okay? And I don't know what Pete Davidson said. I heard about it when it happened, that he was apparently pretty offensive towards Dan. And, Dan's a Navy SEAL. He's been in combat. He lost an eye in combat. He can deal with criticism. But he's like, listen, I'm running for Congress here, and, you're a comedian, so let me just take a moment and talk to you one-on-one. So he came on the show, and he talked to Pete, and he talked to the American people on Saturday Night Live, and, Pete gave him an honest, listen, I'm sorry, apology, which he needed to. I mean, and, listen, ultimately, it helped, in my personal opinion, I think it helped shine a light on who Dan Crenshaw was, and I think that it helped him get elected, which is great. His is a voice that needs to be heard. If you're going to represent people and have the ability to vote whether or not to send somebody to combat, it is helpful if you're a person who has served the country and has been in that type of situation also. Joe brings up a couple of points about the fact that Dan is a Republican and Tulsi Gabbard is a Democrat, and they both have served in the country, served our country. Dan has had, front lines combat. Tulsi, I think, has done more medical stuff, but she has been in a few combat situations. But they differ on opinions about our involvement overseas, which is, listen, it's healthy to hear both of them talk about it. It is important for the American people not to forget the fact that we are overseas. We are in multiple countries around the planet trying to, quote unquote, defend freedom. And listen, Tulsi talks a lot about how, I don't think we need to be in this conflict, or I don't think we need to be in this country, and she mentions a few things about that and how we're wasting resources that could be better used here. And she's got a good point. But Dan also has a good point in the fact that they're learning to take the fight to the people who are creating the problems. And instead of sitting back on our heels and waiting for it to come to us, there's an argument to be made there too. My personal opinion is I don't think that we need an occupational war. I think that our war, it should be more covert. It should be more espionage and unknown to most Americans. I think that that's the only way to accurately fight terrorism. We're so used to, when I was in the Marine Corps, there was a conversation about theater warfare, about, we're going to stand here, you stand there, and we're going to have this theater of warfare. Like, you got to picture an actual movie theater. We're going to come at you this way, we're going to come at you this way, and this way, and this way. And you're going to be in front of me, and we're going to do it like this. Which works in some scenarios. if the bad guy's going to stand there in front of you. But if you think about how this country was turned over from the British were like that. The British believed in theater warfare, and the American patriots, when they decided they wanted to get rid of Britain, they used guerrilla tactics. Here in South Carolina, they used the swamps. I mean, they came at them from all directions. They weren't going to stand in front of them and be shot. They're like, no, we're going to win this any way we can. And they did. And that's kind of what terrorism is, in a way. You know, they look at us and they go, okay, if you're going to stand out there and proclaim, this is where our base is, okay, well, you're a target. To me, occupational war is not the way to fight this. You know, does there need to be a contingency on how to combat terrorism? Yes. Do we need to have some presence overseas? Yes. I don't think we need to be spending the kind of money we're spending having as many bases as we do have, though. I think it's a little crazy to do that. I think we need to scale back a bit. But listen, I'm just a guy, okay? I'm not in the fold. I don't have information. I'm not privy to what's going on behind the scenes. And I may have some people on here in a little bit that have more information than I have that can give you some more inside information. You know, one of my friends growing up, a guy I knew, John Floyd, spent 22 years and retired from the Army, and he's got some stories. And it'd be interesting to get his perspective on things. I know that he's retired now, and he is doing some gentleman farming, and that is helping with his PTSD, and that's good. And I'm sure that he's getting counseling. He and I talked a little bit about it. But like a lot of people, his story also needs to be told. I work with a guy named Stephen Atkinson who had, first-hand combat experience in the Marine Corps, and you can tell that there's elements of his past where he's seen way more than he wants to see and felt like he should see, and dealing with day-to-day stuff sometimes is difficult because of what he's been through and what he's seen. You know, years ago they used to call that being shell-shocked, and now they use the term, PTSD or whatever. But it's also one of those things where we expect our fighting men and women to go through extreme hardship and then suddenly turn a switch and be different people once they come back here. That's very difficult. So hopefully I can get both of those people on here to talk about their experience a little bit and kind of give you guys some insight, and we can float ideas around. Because that's what this is all about. Listen, if this podcast does nothing, I want it to create conversation. I want people to have understanding for one another, and I want them to have an open dialogue. Because at the end of the day, we're supposed to help each other. So, you heard it here, stuff I heard. I'm going to sign off for now. Again, happy birthday, Brandy. And please remember to rate, review, subscribe. Check out some of the podcasts I talk about. Look at some of these on YouTube. I don't think Michael Rosenbaum's on YouTube. He used to be, but he said it was too problemsome for him. But, check out some of these others on YouTube. Get to watch the video, too. Especially the Two Bears, One Cave. That's hilarious. And, listen, we'll keep doing this as long as you guys keep participating. Okay? Thank you again, and hope everybody has a great day. Cue the cow. That's it. Bye, y'all.